Hello everyone, it's thomasjujube, and welcome back to another Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger video. As you can see, I'm here in my unboxing setup, but I'm not actually going to be unboxing anything, as you can tell from the title and thumbnail. A little bit ago, we got an announcement for the Memorial Edition line of Zenkaiger, and since, as you can tell, I'm a big fan of the show and the toy line and quotes from the show, I figured it would be kind of fun to do a little video talking about partly what I'd like to see them do from a Memorial line, what I think they'll be doing. I'm not going to be talking about the Kira Major aspect, especially since I'm pretty sure by the time this video comes out, the Kira Major thing will already be announced. So there's no point in me talking about that, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to cut it pretty close to the Zenkaiger announcement. So we're just going to focus on Zenkaiger and this Kira Major. There's no point, it's already passed. If you're wondering about the stuff over here, I have a Geartlinger, and I haven't had a Geartlinger before. I do have an unboxing video on the way with me unboxing this thing, but if you want to see the unboxing right now, it's available over on my Patreon for only $2. You'll get access to my unboxing of this thing, the Demon's Driver, the Orb Ring, all of that are going to be videos at some point, but you can watch it right now for just $2. But if you can't support me on Patreon, instead just subscribe to this channel, it's just as helpful, and make sure you go check out my other Zenkaiger videos, like my full season review, and the Sentai Potential episode of Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger, which is kind of like what this video is going to be, but instead we're focusing exclusively on the toys if they were a very expensive toy line. So let's begin. Some of you might be wondering what the Memorial Edition is, so to briefly get into that. What it is it's the complete selection modification line, but for Super Sentai. That doesn't explain anything, I know. Essentially, the Memorial Editions of Sentai toys are like the show experience put into the toys directly. Instead of just being the transformation sounds and stuff like that, the transformation sounds are upgraded to be like completely show accurate. But in addition, they add quotes from the characters, so when you transform, you got the character talking alongside the transformation, so it feels like you're actually the character transforming or the character's with you. They also include music from the show, so you can recreate entire sequences from the show by playing quotes and having the correct music playing. The toy is also usually upgraded to be show accurate either in size, like a full-size sword, or they'll just remove screw holes and make keys flip easier. It kind of varies. It varies with this thing as well. I will be discussing the 1-to-1 scale issue in a second. First off, we 100% know that this is going to have character quotes and background tracks. So for basically, I would see them having like kind of like the Memorial Ryusoken. They'd have like two buttons here pretty much, or like a button on the side or something. So one button is the music button. Obviously you have the show opening in there, and then the roll call music. 100% I need that roll call music in a toy. Then there's like a couple other songs, like there's like this emotional moment song that they play. I'll maybe have it playing in the background for a second here. Maybe the final roll call music as well, since that was a little bit different. And stuff I don't think they'll include, but I kind of would like, is like Change Zenkai, the ending theme from the Zenkai Red spinoff. Just because it's like the ending theme for the show, but kind of not really. It would be kind of fun to have it in a toy. And then I would really like if we gave all the character songs in here. I say all the character songs just to be fair, but I really only need one character song in here, and that would make me I would buy 2 of these if they had that character song in here. I wouldn't actually, because it's going to be very expensive. Now, quotes are always like a bit of a weird thing with the Memorial toys. So what I would personally like is the quote button to mainly focus on the roll calls of the Zenkaigers. So we have different modes. If you hold the button, it switches to different modes for different quotes and stuff. So right out of the box, it's just a normal toy. Like, it's the normal Geartlinger, essentially. You hold it, and it takes you into the team quote mode. Then I would have, if you push a button, it gives you a little signification that you're activating different roll calls from the show. So if you press like the first time, and it's like the 2-man roll call from the first episode. You take your gear, you open it, put the gear in, close it, and then when you close it, you get Kaito and Juran saying change Zenkai. Then you twist it, it's ready to shoot. Maybe you have them talking, because they did talk a bit during that moment. Then you shoot, it does the ba-ba-ba-bang. And then, if you press the button again, it will do the Himitsu no power, Zenkaiser, Kyoryu power, Juran, and then the Futari Wazete, when just the 2-person roll call, and then Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger. And then after that, you can keep going and cycle through other roll calls then. So essentially you have that mode replicated, or that feature replicated for, I would personally like most of the roll calls in the show. So I have a list here. You can do the 3-person roll call from episode 2, the 4-person roll call from episode 3, the original 5-person roll call from episode 4. You can do the sushi roll call with Juran and Kaito. You can do the movie version of the roll call. That's a little bit different actually. It's not the roll call itself. When you change, it'll have like all of their numbers overlapping. And then when you transform, it'll have the... And then they didn't even do a roll call, but they do a roll call in the movie, so you can include that even if it's like not show accurate. On that note, I should have pointed out the first 5-person roll call. If you transform, when you have that mode activated, you close this, it says change Zenkai, you turn this handle, and once it's done, it'll say all the bangs. Then there's the garbage person, it's like recycling. Then there's the recycling Zenkaiger roll call, the sleepy Zenkaiger roll call. This one you might not include because it's kind of the same. It's just the order's different. That's the main thing. The tag roll call, definitely include that. There's the first roll call with 2 Kaiser. So essentially you'd include 2 Kaiser now when you go to transform, when you turn everything in the roll call stuff. But then when they go to do the 5 of us are, then you get the whole interaction where Kaito's talking with 2 Kaiser and he's like, why are you including me? And he walks off and they're like, but you... Okay. Then there's another 14 roll call, but it's just the Kikainoids. Then include the love roll call. For stuff like this, where like 2 Kaiser didn't do the roll call with them, but he was still part of the whole thing. Like he said his roll call, and then the 5 of us are, and he wasn't part of that. So for stuff like that, I would include him. But there's some instances where they do the 5 of us are, and then he does a separate roll call, and I'd include that in the Geartlinger. Then there's a variant of the roll call where Super Zenkaiser goes last, so it starts with Juran, ends with Super Zenkaiser. I'd include that. For stuff like the beach roll call, you don't have to include the actual roll call parts because only the 5 of us are part is really different. Like for stuff like that, you can do the transformation, and then you just have, instead of a roll call, you just have the different announcement that Kaito makes. I wrote down manga, but I didn't go to check if it was different, but I do remember that the 5 of us are announcement was different because they were manga, I think. School roll call has the same idea as well because the actual roll call is not different, it's just that the 5 of us are was different. Include the noodle roll call because that was very different. They all got a new roll call. Same thing with the cat roll call. Even though Jordan was still the same, everyone else was different. The backwards roll call could be fun, even though like what they're saying is the same, but they sound different saying it. SD, same idea. Like they sound the same, but it's like kind of different because they're SD. At least the 5 of us are was different with that. Definitely include the second to last finale roll call with Sechan, and then include the finale, the final episode roll call. That one would be a bit different because they don't transform for that. Obviously, they're untransformed. So maybe it would be like you push it, you get to the finale mode, and then it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you kind of have to, maybe it's just like you put the gear in and then you close it. And then now that it, you turn the handle and then it doesn't do the standby, then it just has the effect with like Boku whilst breaking the gears, and then you can replicate the whole scene pushing the buttons, and then you get the finale roll call, I guess. And then one last thing, technically this one's a bit of an if statement because I haven't seen the Versus movie, but looking at the stuff, at least we know that like Stacy and Zox are included in the team roll call, like to an extent. So probably add like a little bit different, like maybe just include Stacy and Zox, because Stacy obviously isn't included in any of the other roll calls. So you can include Stacy in this roll call with Zox. So that's just the main mode. Essentially replacing like any like conversations with the cast in like the team mode. Just make the team mode about the roll calls, because that's like awesome. For the different individual quotes, you can add that with just the different button presses. So you'd like hold the button again and then you go to Kaito. So for Kaito, you can press it and you just get Kaito talking. However, now in this mode, if you go to change, you put the gear in, you close it, then it's just Kaito saying change Zenkai. Then you transform. When you press the button again, you just get Kaito's Himitsu no Power Zenkaiger. Also, the other characters have individual different roll calls. There's like some instances where they have different roll calls and the whole team doesn't. So you could add those here as well. So for example, Kaito would just have his normal roll call, but maybe if you press it again, you can get the super roll call, you can get the copy roll call, you can get the tennis roll call. There's like, this one's a bit different. You could do the Ankoku no Power roll call when he was Stacy. So technically he didn't use this to do that, but I don't know. I mean, it's still like a Kaito mode, so you can still have Kaito say that. And then also include the, I guess, I don't know, it's not really a mode, a roll call. He didn't do a roll call, but you could do something with the helmetless transformation when he was fighting Hakaiser. You could add like part of that with the transformation, I guess. And then it's like, basically those would be the first button presses. So it's like, at a certain point you go like, oh, here's the Ankoku mode, you can transform. And then if you keep pressing, then it's just normal Kaito quotes. And then if you transform, it's just the normal Kaito like transformation. Hold the button again, you get the Juran mode. Same thing. The first couple of roll calls would be the normal roll call, of course, the invisible roll call he does, and then the one when his like great something grandfather was like kicking his ass in the roll call. And then just a side note for like all the Geekanoids, probably want to add like Zenroku Zenkaio stuff, like when they were doing the Super Sentai Jurassic Power or something like that. Not really a roll call, but kind of under that same note. Hold the button again and we're in Gaon mode. Gaon, I don't think ever did like a different roll call that was not part of the team. And he never even did a Zenroku Zenkaio thing. So this would kind of just, this is where like, again, like you just kind of press the button, you get quotes from Gaon, but none of them would activate a different roll call. Whereas the others, they would activate a different roll call. Speaking of others, hold the button, you get my favorite mode because it's Majin. So when you go into that mode, you go to transform, and then when you do this, like she says change Zenkai. When you press the button, she does her roll call. But then when you press the button again, she says new Majin. And it's like, then I die. Pretty much of adorableness. Please, Bandai, please, I beg. I want the Noroi no Power roll call. So definitely, like you push the button, you get like whatever, the confirmation you're in a different mode. Close it, then transform, and then you get the Noroi no Power roll call. Yes. Then I would also, I think it would be really cute if you added a Sabla like roll call thing, because like she does the same roll call, but basically it would be like you close this, she says change Zenkai, and then you get I almost said Angel Limit. You close the thing, and then you get Reika saying Henshin. Then when you go to transform, because actually the transformation's a bit different, it's a bit shortened, so you can have that feature. But then when she transforms, you also have the Noroshi going off in the background. And then when you press the button, you get Majin's roll call first, and then you press it again, and then you get the Reika roll call. Rune is almost like Aon in that he doesn't really have any different roll calls. But I would like, again, you could add the one where he's stuck in garbage. But we have to include all of the Geartlinger users, and I think this might be why they've waited on the Geartlinger for so long for Memorial. Who knows why? I think it might have just been so I end up buying the DX, even though I said I would wait until the Memorial. I got impatient, and then they're like, okay, now we'll announce Memorial. Anyways, Zenkaiger Black needs a mode. And I mean, that's about it. He doesn't really, he doesn't do any, like a roll call, at least so far. Maybe when he does do a roll call in Donbrothers, then you can add a different mode. And then, actually I would probably include this as a button press before Zenkaiger Black, Zenkai Red, because he used it And yeah, so obviously hold the button, Zenkai Red, you get Zenkai Red quotes. If you transform, you get the Red no power, Zenkai Red. But also for these last two, I would like if the finisher had the like sounds of the sword coming out that they do in the show. Same with the others, actually. When you do the finisher, you probably need the Zenkai Finish Buster, like that character saying Zenkai Finish Buster individually. And then in the team mode, if you did the finisher, it would have all of the characters say that. So in those quote modes, I'd have the gear sounds be like set to that mode. So like if you're in the team mode, obviously it doesn't matter what gear you're putting in. It is going to say like all of their names or do all the roll calls. If you're in the Zenkaiser mode, you can put in the Majin gear because it's the best gear. That's why I've been using it as the example, but it doesn't actually matter. It is just going to play the Zenkaiser sounds. In Majin mode, it's always going to play Majin's gear sound. That's pretty much how those modes will work with the individual gears. On the Kikai side, if you use that, it will also be a bit different. If you use the Kikai side in Kaito mode, I would like if we got all the Zenkaiyo sounds. Basically, like you press, instead of roll calls, you press it and you got the character saying Zenkaiyo, Juragaon, and you do all of them as well. And then maybe you can also include something for the Zenroku Eagle, since that is a mecha essentially for Kaito. Like essentially like maybe one time, maybe like the final attack. No, because they have the final attack, I guess. So maybe at least for the final attack, you would probably add the different mecha final attacks as well. Like the mecha sounds are kind of hit and miss. They don't really always add them with this, but since the characters are the mecha, I feel like you have to add something like that, especially for the Kikinoid modes. If you do the Big Bang in the Kikinoid modes, 100% we definitely need like Majin saying Kikai Henkei Majin Dragon, and all the others will say their Kikai Henkei. And then if you do the Big Bang in that mode, since they never did that, except for one time where we got the Geartlinger Bazooka. So definitely have the Geartlinger Bazooka as the Big Bang in the quote Kikinoid modes. Then for other random gears, at least one big thing is Two Kaiser and Stay Caesar. This doesn't read Stay Caesar at all. Two Kaiser is read the same as the Donbrothers gear. So I think it would be kind of neat if you kind of just carried over the sounds from the gear Tozinger, where it says like Kaizokubang, and then Stacy's sounds are like the same as well. But then it's just the Geartlinger voice saying it. So you kind of get Stacy's transformation, but like with the Geartlinger. I think that would be kind of interesting. I don't know if you have to add quotes in it. Like you could maybe have this is where the Ankoku no Power Kaito roll call comes from, but I don't think it really matters. For the non-henshin gears, the difference in sounds would be a little bit different. At least one big thing that we can definitely assume will happen is that when you use a henshin gear, you're going to have the sound of the armor attaching onto the characters, and the other gears will not have that because they're not transformation gears. I would personally like if they shortened the bang bang bang, like the whole transformation sound, because that's usually shortened or just gone when they're used in the show. Then, like, this is a maybe, but I would really like if those gears had individual sounds as well. Like, the sounds, like, in the show when they play, like, you could hear, like, an old Go Ranger effect or some old, like, Jaka effect play when you use the Jaka gear. Essentially stuff like that, but I feel like that's kind of a bit much. That's like a lot of sounds. Like they haven't really done anything like that. Like even the Dawn Blaster doesn't do that. So maybe like the Senpaiger gears could have the older sounds play, like different attacks, but maybe the other ones wouldn't. And then one last thing, I would really like if the Donbrothers gear had like just did that whole scene. Like if you used the Donbrothers gear and then you fire, you've got Don Momotaro, the sound of Don Momotaro showing up. He's like, "What's up, bitches? Matsurida, Matsurida!" I think that would be fantastic. The big thing everyone is always talking about with this Memorial Geartlinger is the one-to-one issue that I briefly mentioned earlier. So the issue, very simply, is that the show prop, if it was made into a toy, the way it is now will not work. Because, as you can see, there isn't anything around the gear. It's just the gear sitting in this big crevice, and then you close the handle. But the way the toy works, for those that didn't know, is that there are these buttons here. And these buttons read all the different teeth on the gear. Each gear has a different little teeth combo. So when you put the gear in, and you rotate this, oh, it's not like, when you put the gear in and you rotate this, it is pressing a different combination of buttons, and that is how it knows what gear is inserted in there. What they'll have to do is do some re-engineering. Like, they have to change the show prop to be not 100% show accurate, so it could actually work as a toy. So some have been saying, like, will they even do that? Because you could just re-release this, like, just re-release this mold and add the new buttons and the sounds and stuff. People will still buy it. I'll still buy it. You know, show accuracy is kind of the Memorial Edition thing. Like, the last time we gotten a gun changer, actually the only time we've gotten a gun changer in the Memorial line, it wasn't one-to-one. It was just the toy with new quotes. However, that was the first Memorial Edition toy. Very soon after, they released the Memorial Ryu Soulken, which was a full one-to-one size sword prop. They followed that up with the Memorial Geiselken, another one-to-one prop. In Kamen Rider, the Memorial Sword Driver was a one-to-one prop. So they are committed to doing one-to-one scale-ups. And also we have to consider that, like, when they make these show-accurate toys, even the CSMs, they're show-accurate to a point, because they've got different props in the show that aren't always the same. So it's kind of like the prop of a, it's pretty much one-to-one to a specific prop, not like one-to-one to the way it is all the time. And to add all the different quotes and stuff, they have to add different buttons, which obviously are not present on the show prop. So it's like, you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, it's my one-to-one toy. And you're like, oh, there's a button here. But it's like, it doesn't matter. It's still, the toy still looks one-to-one. It feels like a show prop, and I get some extra stuff out of it. So I personally think they will be upscaling this thing to one-to-one, and they're going to be modifying the compartment a bit so it works as a toy. Now, how do I think they'll change it? I think there are a couple different ways. First off, they could just take this piece and copy and paste it over into the show prop. So you've got the big lid, but the compartment is a little bit smaller, and you just paint the surrounding area red. So it looks like the big red, like, platform they place the gear on, but it is actually like just a small compartment you're placing this thing on. Alternatively, they could make that whole big compartment, but they have a little piece sticking out from the top, from the side, from wherever, and that will have the buttons on it. So then when you close the lid keeps the gear in place, and then when you turn the handle, it'll still be able to press buttons, and then you get sounds and stuff. So that's my take on the one-to-one issue. We're gonna make it one-to-one. I hope I'm right, but I mean, I see no reason not to. You change the engineering a bit, but it's not like that big of an issue. Right, like, the rest of this video is going to be kind of up in the air. I guess it depends on how well the Memorial Geartlinger sells. Basically, the premium Geartlinger they already released is already pretty much a Memorial item. It has a bunch of Stacy's quotes. It has his 2 different modes. It's even got, like, the little moment where he did Kaito's roll call in the show. They've already released all the gears for the thing. The only reason I see them making a Memorial Edition is if they do it one-to-one. You know, one-to-one Gear kind of means you can re-release the toy because it's kind of an entirely new toy. If they're not doing the one-to-one, I don't think they're going to release this thing at all, because there's not really anything else they can add other than, like, the rest of the Toju Tendo. The one dude who uses the gun in the Versus movie, some of Stacy's quotes from, like, the end of the show, because they released the toy a little bit early, but I don't know. This thing I think is more interesting as a memorial. So it is kind of very similar to what I explained for the Geartlinger. So obviously you have like 2 different modes, a button, a background mode button, and a quote mode button. Background tracks I would include are the one in Zox's debut in the background. Separate ones for the Shinken form, Orin form. Obviously, you have to include Kaizoku no Uta. I don't know if they'd include that as a button here, or maybe like as a whole separate, like you push a button in the quote mode and you just have Zox singing the whole moment from the show, like a debut mode essentially. That could be kind of fun. And then I think it would also be kind of fun to include the other Gold Tweaker song, the one that Flint and the brothers sing, because I believe they did play that in the stage show where Kikai Flint debuts, which I'll get into in a second. And since this is like the Gold Tweaker gun, it isn't like a whole team gun, it would kind of make sense to include Zox's song, might as well include the other 3 siblings as well. On the topic of this just being like the Gold Tweaker gun, there's not really that much in the quote department as well. You have a Zox mode, and just like the other Zenkaigers, I'd have the different roll calls he does. So obviously the normal roll call, if you put a gear in here, you transform, and then he does the Kaizoku no power. A different button press would give you the Shinken form, a different one would give you the Oren form. It's not really a roll call they do, but like they do kind of a roll call, so that's what I mean when like you push the button you get a roll call. Super form obviously gets a roll call. There's the beach team roll call where he does a roll call and then he kind of does like a team assemble thing, but it's with all the Gold Tweakers. Same thing applies for the school. I don't think he does a separate roll call. He does a tennis roll call as well, like Kaito. And then he also has an individual noodle roll call and a cat roll call that he doesn't really do as part of the other teams, and maybe some others I've forgotten. But if he never does the roll call before the 5 Zenkaigers do theirs, I would include it as a separate roll call in this thing. And then I'd also include the roll call with Stacy, either the moment like when he's possessed or the moment at the end of the show where they're working together. The brothers, I don't think you'd really need quotes. Like maybe you could give them quote modes and that's where the Shinken form, Oren form, sound effects come in. But other than that, like I don't know. Then I would definitely love to have a Kikai Flint sound in this thing, because it's only in a stage show, but it's like it's only like one character already for the roll call stuff, so you might as well add Flint as well. Like apparently she wanted to transform in the Versus movie, so I'm sure if they called her up and were like, you want to record Kikai Flint sounds for our gun, she'd come in and she'd record Kikai Flint sounds. So again, you give her whole henshin, Hatsume no power, Kikai Flint, all that stuff. And then at that point, I don't know, maybe you could add the 8 Zenkaiger roll call from that same stage show, even though I don't think they did one, but it would be kind of cool to have 8 Zenkaigers doing a roll call. And then I would also include Kikai Flint's gear, because again, like I genuinely think they should include all of the Gold Tweakers in this thing. So one other thing that I think you can improve with this is the motion sensor. So my copy, as you can hear with this, it's a used copy, so I don't know if the motion sensor on mine is just bad, but I have seen people say that like the motion sensor is kind of finicky on theirs when it was brand new, so I assume it's just the motion sensor the way it is now would not allow you to replicate Zox's dances in the show. So I would have in quote mode, much like how it will lock the Sentai gear you're using, like you can use any gear, it will make the same sounds. I would have, if you go to transform, there's no motion sensor activated. It will play like the haze or the ore or whatever in time with the way they are played in the show. So essentially it does like the whole complete standby, and it's up to you to replicate the dance moves or whatever. And then if you're not in a quote mode, then maybe we can still activate a motion sensor, and it's just a bit weird kind of how you're doing it. Or maybe it's just a big button. I have some people say you could just make this a big button that you press, and then you could have that happen. But I would still have the standby stuff locked in the quote mode just for the sake of show accuracy. In terms of other gears, this is definitely the place to give gears their individual sounds, because in the show, they all make the same sound. So this thing will still say Sen, Tiny, Revolution, or whatever. But definitely include the old sounds in this show. Like at least the ones he used, like I know the first one he uses like the Geki Ranger gear. Give the like a Geki Ranger sound that plays when he uses the Geki Ranger gear here, or when you use the Geki Ranger gear in this. And then the last thing is the one-to-one issue is about the same. If the Memorial Geartlinger is one-to-one, this will definitely be a one-to-one as well. It's got the same problem, but I also think it would be very fun if this has a sword mode, and if this has to be one-to-one, the sword mode also has to be one-to-one. You know, it's not the first time they did one-to-one swords. They could probably add like a little sleeve. I've seen people sell like sleeves you slip onto this thing and then it's one-to-one. They could do that. Maybe it could be a piece you detach and then you reattach and then it's the one-to-one sword mode. Either way, they'll definitely make the sword one-to-one. As long as like the whole gun is one-to-one, the other gun is one-to-one, the sword will be one-to-one as well. I'm tired of saying one-to-one. So that's about it for the Memorial Zenkaiger discussion that I wanted to have. Be sure to let me know what you think they should do, what they will do with the Memorial Geartlinger at least, since that's, at least we know they're making that. You can include the Geartlinger, the Geartlinger if you'd like. Anything you want to talk about with the Memorial Zenkaiger line, be sure to let me know down in the comment section. You can come back after they announce the thing and let me know if I was right or I was wrong. If they announce a Geartlinger in like 5 years and I was wrong, please come into this comment section and tell me I'm wrong, because it will give the video interaction and maybe more people will see it. Once again, be sure to subscribe so you can check out all of my other Zenkaiger videos and all of my future Super Sentai videos, and I hope to see you next time.